Now, let's talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. Let's draw two lines. This is the first line. And another line I will draw, which is perpendicular to the first line. So they form 90 degrees angle on each other. This is line 2 and this is line 1. Perpendicular, it means that they form 90 degrees angle on each other. Now, the gradient of L1, if I multiply it by the gradient of line 2, it gives me always -1. So in order to find the gradient of any perpendicular line, we have to flip and change the sign. You have always to remember we have to flip and change the sign. This is in the case of perpendicular lines. Let's talk about the case of parallel lines. Parallel lines are lines that will never intersect. Let's draw two lines that are parallel. This line, and I can draw another line also this way. These lines are parallel. This is line 1 and this is line 2. For parallel lines, the gradient are always equal. So the gradient of line 1 is equal to the gradient of line 2. Let's now solve an example on parallel and perpendicular lines. The example says that line 1 has the equation y equals 3x plus 5. Write down the gradient of a line that is parallel to line 1. Now, I have to take out the gradient of line 1, which is in this case 3. So this is the gradient of line 1. Now, for part A, if I want a gradient for a line which is parallel to line 1, then simply it is equal to the gradient of line 1. So the gradient of the parallel line, gradient is simply equals also to 3. Part B, I want to find the gradient of a perpendicular line. The gradient of a perpendicular line. The gradient of the perpendicular line, I simply take the gradient of the line and I flip it and I change the sign. So this is +3. I just flip, it becomes 1/3 and the sign was positive. So now my new sign would be negative. So the gradient of the perpendicular line on line 1 is -1/3.